Hello, and welcome back to the Tea and a Butty podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And today's episode is all about British public information films. Yeah. So tell us all about them, Erica.
I know, yeah.
Tell us all about the British public information films.
You have shown me
I've shown you a couple.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have or not.
And I think I've seen, on maybe some of the British reality shows or something that we've seen, whatever, whether it's the
British reality shows
or panel shows. Yeah, we've seen some.
The panel shows. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm calling
I thought you were talking about stuff like
I'm talking about Back in Time for Dinner.
The educational ones.
They'll have mentioned them several times, but you'll have to explain what we're talking about when you say, what did you? Public information films.
Or PIFs, like PSAs are over here.
Oh, yeah.
PIFs. Well, basically, public information films, they were commonplace in the 1950s until, the 2000s.
Okay.
Early 2000s, 2006 and stuff like that. That was kind of the end of them, really. They'd been running since, the 40s because of the Ministry of Information. Back when it used to be called the Ministry of Information, It's
like the Ministry of Magic.
The Ministry of Magic, because,
you just knew I was going to say that,
Harry Potter, people think, J.K. Rowling invented the Minister of Magic and the Ministry of Magic and all that. It's an old-timey thing, because they used to, in the wartime, up until, maybe the 80s, everything was called the Ministry of something,
I think that in America
the Ministry of Transport.
I think in America we've heard of the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah, they still use that. It's they're called departments now. The Department of State.
Yeah.
Department of.
They were called Ministry until the early 2000s.
Something like that. I don't know when the official name change came in, but most Brits, because it's been, that they hold on to stuff. When you're talking about the MOD, they're meaning Ministry of Defense.
Oh, yeah.
Or I've got to take my car for an MOT, which is to, get it inspected to be roadworthy.
Yeah.
Which they're apparently getting rid of in Texas.
Don't even
it's the rules over in Britain to, have your car on the road are very strict. If you don't pass the MOT, then it's against the law.
Yeah. MOT is Ministry of Transport.
Ministry of Transport, but it's Department of Transport now and Department of whatever,
Yeah.
But now, back in the Ministry of Information, it was kind of propaganda, kind of safety films and this is how you should do tea, This is how you should make a proper cup of tea.
Yeah.
And this is how, they'd be shown between features at the cinema and stuff like that.
I was about to say.
And what to do if the Germans invade, that kind of things,
And I think at that time, if we're going back that far, I think that kind of thing existed over here as well.
Yeah. They were kind of propaganda type things.
Before you went to see a movie, they would go, "Ooh, has this ever happened to you?" And, show a little scenario.
Has this ever happened to you? It's not very good, is it? Yeah.
Do X, Y, and Z in this instance,
So, those kind of things happened. It was the Ministry of Information. Then then it became the Central Office of Information in the 50s.
Yeah.
And they continued to produce these short films. And they were kind of gentle. They'd have stars of the day up until the maybe the 60s. Mm-hmm. It would just be gentle. The Green Cross crowed, always looked left and right, and everything was kind of gentle reminders. Learn to swim if you should fall into a pond. All children should be, learn to swim. All that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened, because it's still kind of the same thing over here. Well, it never really changed over here. I think it was always kind of just hey, kids, if a stranger talks to you, you just say no.
Yeah. You don't see them as often anymore, though, here either. Yeah.
No, because I guess because of the internet, they've kind of been rendered obsolete.
It's sort of like, well, it's sort of gone down to like catchphrases over here. No longer a film, just like a little phrase to remember.
Turn around, don't drown.
Yes.
Drive alive.
Yeah. When thunder roars, head indoors. Yeah.
It's that kind of stuff. It was the same in
it's like a very watered down version.
There was one. It's like drink driving.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be quite prevalent.
Yeah.
And it would be just a case of like like one of those films where, like an up-and-coming actor who later went on to be in The Bill or something like that. I'd be like, oh yeah, because I was watching a couple of them in research. I was like, oh yeah, he went on to be in The Bill.
You can find these on YouTube now.
Yeah, you can find all these on YouTube. And, he was like, oh no, and it's like, remember, if you fancy a jar, forget the car,
Oh, yeah.
And, if you're going out drinking, don't take the car because you'd be breathalyzed and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like, oh yeah,
yeah.
But the safety ones were the ones that stick in the memories, and they were shown in schools. I remember ones from like the 70s and 80s that were really traumatic. They were traumatic. Everyone remembers them. Everyone's like, oh god, I remember that.
Yeah.
I never wanted to go near a pond again.
Appealing to someone's sense of fear, that gets a lot done.
It gets a lot done. It's like they because over here, I guess it's just like, hey kids, you stay away from the thing, and they're just like,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
But when they show something terrible happening,
yeah,
and it's very graphic, it's like. It's like,
let's traumatize our children.
Let's traumatize the kids. And I mean, it's like, well, these films, they advise the public on what to do in like a multitude of situations, like crossing the road and surviving a nuclear attack. I don't think they were actually released, but like snippets of them have appeared online over the years, because that was like in the early 80s. Yeah. Everybody was freaked out about the nuclear bomb.
And it was like, oh, if you were at school, climb under your desk.
Yes. Climb under your desk.
Yeah.
And it's like, people think, oh, to this, they were just about safety, but there was like animal cruelty, protecting the environment, crime prevention, how to vote at a general election, or how to fill in a census form.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They just kind of did all that, but everybody just remembers the safety ones, because they were the most graphic.
Yeah, and so they started off being like at the movie theater before the feature film would come on.
Yeah.
And then what? And then they would show them in schools.
What happened is they'd the Central Office of Information would distribute these to like ITV, because they never really come on the BBC.
Yeah.
Because the BBC didn't have adverts.
Mm-hmm.
So in those days, not everybody would buy advertising airtime, so they'd show one of these public information films, you know, in the break on ITV.
They didn't show them on the BBC?
The BBC kind of had their own thing going, you know.
Yeah.
But the ITV is where I'd see them, especially like the drink driving ones and stuff like
At
that.
any particular time?
And they were free.
Like, not like on a Saturday morning, just whenever?
Whenever.
Okay, yeah.
It would be to just fill the airtime of unused commercial airtime, you know. And as a result, there was a lot of this. And there's some of them, the same ones kept getting...
Yeah.
shown. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they'd make like 20-minute films for like schools and stuff. And there was one I remember, Apaches, they showed in school. And I'm not sure why they did that. I think that was the teacher just kind of like looking to freak us out. Because it was kind of like, we didn't live in a rural area. I mean, I'll get to it anyways. It's just like...
This just reminds me, do you remember, I mean, this sort of has to do with this, but... ish. Yeah. Do you remember, like, when we used to have Turner Classic Movies?
Yes.
And it was, I think it was on, like, Saturday mornings or something. They would show, if you looked at the guide, it would show, you know, this film was showing from 9 until 11, and then the next film was showing from 11 until... 1 o'clock or whatever. But sometimes you would get in, and you thought it was going to be the end of the film, but I guess the film had already ended, like, you know, a few minutes beforehand or whatever. And they would just show, like, old commercials.
Like old
or these types of things. I remember laying in bed with you one morning and watching it, and we were thinking, this is not, whatever we thought we were tuning in for.
It was like an army...
It wasn't an army one, though. It was like something really, really weird and like very like misogynistic, obviously. It was like
tell your woman how to make a cup of tea.
It was like him. Yeah. It was like the guy like... Oh, terrible. Something about the changing the car tire or something and it was they were outside and it was just very bizarre and we were like, what in the world? And then we understood then that it was one of these types of things. It's one of these
like a PSA, a person, or a public information film.
It was one of these things that would have come on at the movie theater, while the people were waiting for their film to come on.
It's like, oh, Betty, you don't know how to do that. Oh, yeah. Does your wife know how to change a tire?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, they were like rife, and they were ripe for like the television when television came out.
Yeah, I mean,
but I guess over here there was like so many people bought commercial time.
Yeah.
That they're not selling anything.
I mean, the closest thing I can think of is like the little things on NBC, the more you know.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
But it wasn't necessarily like I don't remember anything like being really scary. I could be completely wrong though. But it would just be like little like, did you know if you go outside without sunscreen, the sun can damage your skin and
so always wear sunscreen.
Yeah, it would be something like that. Yeah. Like a minute
they
long. They
didn't show
or not
what
even.
actually happened to that kid, It's like, no, I'm going to talk about Apaches later.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just kind of like, it was just so crazy. And we thought, it's great, And I remember watching this film with her. I was just like, what is this film? By the 1970s, these films began to get more, like, horrific.
Yeah.
And, they started to remain in the minds of British children.
Oh, yes.
Like Joe and Petunia were a 4-part series of public information films in the UK from...
Joe and Petunia?
Joe and Petunia.
Okay.
There were a 4-part series of public information films in the UK from 1968 to 1973. They were animated and it featured Joe, a tiny little man in pinstripes, and Petunia, his wife, who wore a hat and sunglasses. And they were a little bit dumb, just a little bit couple of... bumpkins, on holiday,
Yeah.
The first one, the Coast Guard, it was about, them sitting on the beach at Dover and watching this guy through, and he goes, he looks like he's having a good time, Petunia.
Yeah.
And he was really having trouble and drowning, and he was like, help, and he was like, oh, yeah. And then it's only when he was like, he's trying to say something, call back. And he's like, dial 999, the Coast Guard,
Okay, the guy that was drowning.
And just, okay. And he runs to dial 999, and it's just like, if you see someone in need of help, dial 999 and call the Coast Guard, know. And then they had, like, one about flags on the beach, this part's where it's safe to swim,
yeah, right.
And, the country code, which is always, like, pick up your litter and don't disturb fences and stuff like that, but because of the popularity of them, the British public were like, we want a series with them, they're great, so the creators were kind of like, these are supposed to be educational characters, not entertainment.
Yeah.
So in their last film, they're doing a mountain drive in their Mini.
Yeah.
Petunia sees a notice board advertising that worn tires kill.
Uh-huh.
And repeatedly asks Joe whether he has checked their tires, and he tries to evade the question, then says they're not worn, but they're a bit smooth. And Petunia is relieved, and then her expression...
She's relieved by that, is she?
But then her expression turns to horror as the car skids and crashes into a tree.
Oh my god.
The cartoon image then changes to a shot of a real Mini that's crashed into a tree, cutting to a close-up of the tyre. A caption states, "Worn tires kill," as we hear Joe's and Petunia's echoing voices repeating the words from the start of the film. Nice view up here, Petunia.
And oh my god!
They killed them off. Yeah, they're dead.
Oh no!
I'm just like, they're dead. That's it. And I think that that was kind of like the catalyst. Is like, we can go a bit dark here.
Yeah.
You know, with our message, because it's not getting through to these people.
Yeah.
We need to go darker. We need to tell them what's going on.
Oh, no.
It's funny because J.K. Rowling said that the Aunt Petunia must have come from seeing one of the public information films, and she thought, oh, the name Petunia, that's a good name.
Okay.
And I mean, so, you know.
Yeah.
So the one that always kind of gets ranked up as like the most like scary is Lonely Water.
The name already sounds terrifying.
Yeah, and I think it's called I Am the Spirit of the Dark and Lonely Water, you know? And it's just like shot in kind of like this, and it's like a film warning children of the dangers of foolhardy behaviour around lakes and ponds, you know?
Yeah.
And the film is like shot in like a horror movie style with a menacing black-robed figure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, featuring a
Like a Grim Reaper.
Yeah, featuring a memorably chilling voiceover from Donald Pleasance.
Oh, yeah.
You know, who played Sam Loomis in Halloween, and he's been in The Great Escape and James Bond and everything like that. Yeah. You know, he was Blofeld, actually. And, you know, he's just like, you know, he's like, oh, here's some children playing on the scene, he's showing off, and, you know, he's talking like that. And then the kid falls in and goes, oh, and she goes, I've got him now, you know, whatever. He's just kind of like...
These are no longer cartoons at
No,
this point.
these are live action, yeah. So, and then in the, there's a kid going, help, help, around rusty, like, they've been playing around a rusty lake, and there's like...
As you do.
Yeah, because I mean, kids in the 70s, that's like bombed out cars and stuff were at the bottom of these things, and, you know, like they jump in, and that's what I always used to go, oh, don't go near the pond, because, you know, you hear that story about that kid that got the weeds and all that trapped, and he drowned, and you know, and I was just like, I'm not going to get in that pond. Or there was an old car underneath there that they haven't pulled out.
Yeah. I mean,
or an old cooker or something, you know, because people were doing that, you know, throwing out their old cookers and throwing them into ponds.
I mean, ultimately, you don't really need these films, do you? Because you hear all of that kind of thing as an urban legend.
But then everyone sees this kind of film, like, oh yeah, this dark root figure, you know. He's just like, and this kid was going at the end of the film. This kid's going, help, help, and then these other kids are like, oh, someone's trapped in the water. He goes, sensible children, and you know, I've no need for them or something, you know. And so they pull him out, and, you know, he goes, oh, he's all wet, you know, get something to cover him with or something. And they see the robe of the, you know, like the black hooded robe figure's robe is just there because he's no longer...
Because he's dead.
The spirit is gone, yeah.
Oh my god.
And she goes, oh, it's a horrible old thing. And she throws it in the pond, and he's just like, I'll be back, you know. And it's just like, oh, you know. Then there was one from like 1978, which everybody talks about. She goes, oh, that kid. It's Play Safe, which depicts a boy and his friends. They're near an electricity substation, and they're throwing a frisbee around. And it goes up, and he gets caught in like one of the coils. Yeah. Kid's like, oh, I'll just break in and get it, you know. And he goes up, and he goes, oh, you're gonna get it, and he reaches for it and goes, boosh, you know.
Oh my god.
And then it just ends with, like, it says, oh, a child was killed by 60,000 volts and electricity substation. And the government want you to be aware that it's dangerous to play near these, you know, but it did the job. Everyone was like, you know, because they know they all knew a kid like that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one we saw in school, and I don't know where it was kind of like released. I guess it was released on TV too. But it was called Apaches. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it was kind of notorious. It was made in 1977. And it's a film warning the children. It was a film. It follows the misadventures of a group of 6 young children. Kim, Sharon, Michael, Danny, Tom and Robert in a rural British village who enjoy playing on a nearby farm pretending to be Apache warriors. Yeah. You know, because cowboy and Indian films in the 50s and 60s were very big draws. Yeah. You know, so westerns, you know. Mm-hmm. So they were playing being Apache warriors and, like, you know, around this farm, you know. And then throughout the film, the children all die in various different accidents due to their carelessness.
Oh my God.
Like, Kim is run over by a tractor she was standing on. Because the ultra says, oh, get this tractor because he's driving the tractor. And she's like, yeah, and the tractor stops and she falls.
Yeah.
And she gets run over by it.
Yeah.
You don't actually see her get run over, but it's very clear that's what happened. Tom drowns in a slurry pit he falls into while he's running away from the... And that one was pretty terrible because it's the way they shot it. It's like, oh, he goes, oh, Danny, and he's just... You see him just kind of like fall under the thing, and then the just kids are like, you know, just doing death stares, like, oh. You know, and it's like, none of them are like freaking out about this.
Yeah.
The worst one for me, though, was when they were pretending to like do a ritual in the barn. And Sharon, they were like, oh, and they were like, oh, what's this stuff? Oh, you know, and it's like chemicals or something they found in the barn. And they just go, you know, they poured it into a cup and just, oh, it stinks. Oh, we just won't drink it, you know. We'll just pretend we'll drink it. So a couple of them go, you know, pretend to drink it, pretend it. But Sharon actually puts it in her mouth and then goes, and spits it out. And she goes, oh. One of the kids goes, oh, you got it all over my thing. And it's just like... And she was like, oh, it's disgusting or whatever, you know. And then one of them goes, you okay? And she goes, yeah, I think so. And then, like, they stop playing for the day and Sharon goes home.
Yeah. And
then it's like later that night, you see the lights going on and she is screaming murder. It was just terrible watching that. We were all just like that. And the kids like traumatized. Because she's like going, Mommy, you know, screaming.
Oh
like,
my
and
God.
you never see her die, but you just have to imagine what it was she drank.
Yeah.
And it's like killing her, you know. And it was just like, oh God, you know. And she's screaming horrifically for her mother in the middle of the night, you know.
Oh my God.
Then Robert is crushed by a falling gate that Michael knocked over. Yeah. And again, they just go, they just look at him, you know. And then Danny crashes a tractor he is riding into a ditch.
Yeah.
Because he manages to find a tractor.
Why are they all on these tractors? Where are they getting all these tractors
it's a farm.
from? Oh, okay.
They're going around a farm as if, like, you know, they're taking back their land like Apache warriors, you know?
Right.
And Danny continues his narration, because he was narrating the film as well. After
he dies.
After he dies.
Narrating.
And it's
okay.
like, he talks calmly about his family all arriving for a party being prepared earlier in the film, you know, because you see, like, the grown-ups getting ready to do a party.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah, my parents are going to do a party and everyone's going to be invited. And then Michael, who's also present, is revealed to be Danny's cousin, the only child not to have been killed by his own reckless behaviour, the one who survived, despite Danny having described Michael as daft, as silly.
Yeah.
And Danny's voice fades into a ghostly echo as he sadly says he wishes he could have gone to the party, which turns out to be a wake.
Oh, yeah.
For him, the closing credits show a long list of real children who had died in actual farm accidents.
God.
In the year before Apaches was made. And we were just like, we kind of, this was in Torquay, so we were kind of like, I guess, because, you know, like, it's kind of rural if you go out.
Yeah.
But we were just kind of like, you know, that was a weird film. Why would they show that? Like, yeah, this is the dangers, you know. It's like you're traumatized. We thought we were going to watch a film, you know. It was like one of those, like, you know, like, oh, yeah, we don't have to do school today.
They could never show that kind of thing nowadays.
Well,
because you'd have to get all the parents to sign off that, you have my permission, and,
Because I went home and I told my parents, I guess. I was just like, oh, this terrible. And I was like, oh, yeah, Apaches, yeah, we saw that.
Oh, so it was like, oh.
No, they saw that at some point. You know, it was like on BBC One. You know,
oh, yeah.
Because it was from the 70s, and this was like the 90s we were watching it in, you know, like it was still being shown, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, they've shown that to kids. I think my sister or someone said, oh, yeah, I've seen it, you know.
So weird. I wonder what, okay, yeah, so is there an equivalent one for, like, kids who live in the city, though? Because kids who live in the city, they're not going to have these... They're not going to be playing on tractors.
The finishing line was another one made in the same year as 77, and that one actually had a lot of public outcry that it was banned for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
It was the voiceover a headmaster tells his students that he knows that some of them have been playing on the railway, and that they should know about the dangers as well, as saying this, quote, "The railway is not the game field." A young boy is sitting on the railway bridge wall. I think I've seen bits of it.
I mean, the thing is this is ultimately up to the parents to teach their kids not to do these things, isn't it? So it's a little bit like, all right, yeah, you're showing these, you've created these videos that, like, if they were a movie, kids wouldn't be able to go see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there are things in there that kids don't need to see.
And they were being shown, like, you know, pre-watershed.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
You know,
like,
they weren't really swearing in the films, but, you know, it was kind of like, oh, this is gritty. This is dark.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh.
And something like all the farm equipment and stuff.
But it's like we grew up, we're fine, you know, we didn't want to, you know, because there's a lot of people who, because of the lonely water one, would never go near the beach or anywhere again. It had the desired effect. They were like, oh no, I'm going to get gotten by the spirit of dark and lonely water if I go in there. And so I was like, yeah, it's doing its job.
God. You know, the only thing I'm thinking of are not like public information films, but that film from the 90s, Final Destination.
There was no,
You have all these, like, and it's just a movie, you know. You have all these crazy scenarios that all these teenage kids are dying by, and it's like, yeah, I see so many things online, like, my generation, you know, when we're driving behind a truck that has stuff all piled up, you know, we'd be sure to get out from behind them on the highway because it's like, oh no, I've seen Final Destination, like one of those things on that truck is going to slide off of there and through my windshield and like impale me or whatever, you know. And I thought that was just me who does that, but apparently it's a whole generation of kids, which basically serve the same purpose as these public information films.
Yes, I mean, this one, The Finishing Line, I mean, they made a couple more films like it.
Yeah.
About kids playing on the railway line. Oh, yeah, because, I mean, the railway line was always in some town. It wasn't just rurals, it was city as well.
Well, yeah.
So, you know, that a young boy is sitting on the railway bridge wall. As the boy ponders on his thoughts, he pictures a school sports day style event being held on the railway line. The rest of the film shows his imagined idea of what would happen with children being split into 4 competitive teams to take part in different activities often carried out by young people trespassing on the railway. It's like 4 games are held in which the children are challenged to break through the fence surrounding the railway line, play a game of chicken with the trains, and throw things at passing trains. Yeah, that was a problem all throughout the 70s of kids throwing things from bridges. God. You know, like they do here with cars.
Yeah.
But it was like kids throwing stuff at the drivers and stuff like that.
Jeez, yeah.
It's like each time the consequences of these activities are shown, such as one scene where a driver and passenger are left badly injured by broken glass after a child throws a brick through the train window.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was terrible. The final task, called the Great Tunnel Walk, is for the children to run or leisurely stroll or fast walk through a tunnel. But after they enter, another train approaches from the other end of the tunnel. Only 4 children crossed the end of to the end of the tunnel, each of them having sustained serious injuries.
Yeah.
One boy who crosses the finish line collapses as the overhead speaker announces the final results. And the film finishes as a group of adults appear and go into the tunnel and carry out the bodies of the dead.
Oh my God.
And injured children, and then they're laid out in a long line along the railway track, and the camera pans out to show all the dead and bloody children along the track before returning to the boy sitting on the railway bridge wall, who seems to be reconsidering the idea. And there was severe public outcry in reaction to it. And it was eventually banned for 20 years as a result. And BTF was told by British Rail to commission and make a different film called Robbie, the latter of which wasn't as grotesque and or violent as The Finishing Line.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember Robbie. I think that might have been the one I saw. I think he just kind of loses a leg or something.
I mean, they're a bit Alfred Hitchcock
as if that's any better. Yeah, I mean, no, it's like...
You know, it's like...
Because thanks to the internet now, everyone can see these.
Yeah.
So they're just going, oh, what is this crazy? Oh, you know, reacting to the... You know, you get a lot of reactions.
And this was the British government who had these films created?
Yeah, I mean... the British government. They just wanted all the children to be scared of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems a bit extreme, doesn't it? It's like the majority of kids hopefully will have had parents who have taught them well enough that
it's
they
like, whereas
know
the government
better
over here
than,
is all like, it's okay, just don't do that, it's fine, but the British government are like, no, you go near a pond, I'll get you. It's all very sinister.
Well, it's just...
pond, I'll get you.
It's just like, it feels like, we don't trust our parents to teach their kids well enough to stay away from things like this. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's just kind of like, I'm sure there was just people in Britain going, you need to hammer that message home. We don't need celebrities of the day, because I mean, it would be like the Green Cross Crowd. That wasn't too bad. The drink driving ones are terrible. The not wearing seatbelt one. They had one of those in the 90s.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, so and so knew her killer.
Mm.
And she's driving, and she's got her and her daughter in the passenger seat have got their seatbelts on, but her son doesn't.
Oh God.
And so she's like, and she's like watching a car in the rear view mirror like turn off because she thought, oh, it's a guy following or whatever. But she doesn't see the parked car and smashes into it.
Oh God, yeah.
And the son goes whap into her and breaks her skull.
Oh my God.
And sits back and he goes, oh, after he'd done it, he just calmly sat back down, and this daughter's like, It's just like a very traumatic. I remember that one coming on. It was like Think.
I mean, we just had things like
Clunk Clip Every Trip.
Yeah.
Was
Click It or Ticket is ours over here.
Those were kind of like, you just get in the car and just put your seatbelt on, that's fine. But this one was like, okay, yeah, we need one that's gonna like boom, stick in the minds and go, did you see that?
I mean, something like that makes a little bit more sense because, there's a lot of people who don't wear their seatbelts, and I'm sure there's plenty of statistics of people. The majority of people, I think, who die in car crashes, it's because they didn't have a seatbelt on, right? Like, I think that's probably a worldwide thing.
Yeah, there was.
But like the rest of these things that you're mentioning, like, where are the statistics that are showing? Oh, so many kids are getting run over by tractors because they're playing on them, or so many kids are swimming in rusty ponds, like Apaches.
That was like made for kids who lived in rural areas who they're like,
but still,
it's fun.
How many kids died from those things?
Apparently, a lot in the last year in 1976.
Oh no!
Do you want to watch the film? I think you better watch the film, Erica.
Oh my jeez, I don't know. Seems a bit like just over the top.
It's just
seems a bit over the top. I know in the 90s we had the crash test dummies you're talking about.
Yeah, that was kind of like a similar thing. We had like the drink and drive ones, like, oh, the drinking and driving were real people though,
Yeah.
Just, I've had a couple of drinks, I'm alright, yeah, let's go.
Did you have the crash test dummies in
No,
Britain?
I think they were a US thing.
Yeah,
but I do remember them.
Because they, they would put them in actual cars without their seatbelts or whatever, and they would hit them from different sides.
I remember
T-bone them or head on or whatever, and you could see then what actually was going to happen to a human body. They would...
No, in Britain, they just used real people to do that. They just crashed into real people and they filmed it.
Yeah.
It's like many actors died for their craft.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like, no, they'd show it and it would look like, an actual person going through the windshield and going, blah, blood everywhere,
I mean, we talked beforehand, before we started recording this podcast about, because I didn't know what was in these films. I think I thought maybe you had shown me some of them, but so in my head I was going, it's like it's the equivalent to over here after school specials that we had. Yeah. No,
we'll do it.
After school specials are nothing like what you're describing to me. After school specials are like, oh, peer pressure. The other kids are trying to
we
peer
had those
pressure
too,
them
but
into smoking.
It was just kind of like, it's not as bad as like, going up against a train in a
getting
tunnel.
Run over by a tractor.
Or, falling into a slurry pit and calling for your friend as you freaking sink beneath the thing and the friend is just like,
God, what in the world?
He's over the other side of the farm just like, is someone calling me? Someone's just died in a slurry pit.
I mean, the most extreme thing we had that I can think of, I mean, God knows what there was like in the 50s or 60s, but I think it was in the 80s. We had This Is Your Brain. you know, and it was an egg. And it was an egg. This is your brain. And then they go whack with a frying pan. This is your brain on drugs, you know. And it was
just say no.
Oh, God, yeah.
No, they would have probably done that with an actual human brain.
I'll have to let me know, other Americans who are listening.
Yeah.
If you guys can think of anything that we've ever had in this country that is similar to these types of videos that Dominic's talking about. We'll talk about after
if you go on
specials.
YouTube, there's like, the 10 best or something, and they're all
10 best.
They're compiled.
Oh, this one. This one's a really good one.
This is a good one. This one.
God no.
And you know they're like, because I mean the Finishing Line and Apaches, they were like 20-minute films.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching Apaches thinking this is like a long. You know, public information.
I mean, it sounds like it.
You know, like a public, and they had some that for like fire. You know, like, like fire safety ones as well, and there was some weird ones though. There was some like weird.
These weren't weird, were they?
No, these were just like, kids get killed on farms and railway tracks. That's you know.
Oh my god!
But there was some weird like I seem to remember like all the electric safety ones, but there was some weird ones like involving a carpet or something. It's like, don't put this carpet in your home or you'll die.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. I'll have to look for it. It's like, and everybody makes fun of it now, you know.
Oh my god. All right. Well, we'll talk about American after-school specials, which are nothing like these that
very cute
that I can think of in a few podcasts from now, a few weeks from now. So look out for that one if you want. Turns out they're nothing like British public.
They're very sweet and cute. They're just like, you gotta do this.
Yeah. So do let me know if we had anything like this in America, because not that I'm aware of. Nothing this like scary or like terrifying.
It was terrifying, wasn't it?
Anyway, hope you enjoyed.
They did enjoy, didn't you?
If that was possible.
You loved it all.
Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. Special shout out to our patrons for their continued support. If you don't, give us a follow on social media. We are at TButty, TEABUTTY on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all the things. And we'll talk to you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.